everyone, it's Haley, and today is Bookmas Day 18, so I'm going to be sharing with you all of the books that I read this past year, as well as some reading stats, kind of a breakdown, all of that jazz. I hope you like mustard yellow because that is an aggressive color that I'm wearing today. So yesterday for Bookmas Day 18, does that make sense? No, today's day 18. Day 17 yesterday, I talked about some underrated books that I think have not been talked about a lot this year, but came out this year. I don't know why I said that in such a long-winded way, but I will have that link down below, as well as the entire Bookmas playlist so you can get caught up in case you have fallen behind. But today, I am very excited to break down 2020 as a reading year because actually was pretty successful, surprisingly. At the beginning of the year, I set myself the goal of reading 100 books, and I actually did it. I'm really surprised. I cut it like right there. I literally read 100, not one more, but I do credit that to graphic novels almost entirely because I was really behind, and the reason I fell behind was because of everything that's been happening in the world. So there was a point where I wasn't able to really read. I couldn't focus on books at all. There was just too much external things going on, or too many rather, but then eventually I just started reading like a ton in a month, and like regular novels, but I still was behind, so I kind of had to catch up and make up for that. So I ended up picking up a ton of graphic novels. Like for my Halloween readathon, I read 10 graphic novels. I just read a lot of them, but I'm not ashamed about that at all. It still counts as reading. Also, my Goodreads challenge is just a personal thing. I've said this before. It's just about me. It's not about anyone else. I just like to challenge myself to prioritize reading and to pick up a book instead of scrolling on my phone or doing whatever. It just helps me to make it a priority. Like, obviously reading is still fun for me, but it encourages me to try and just read a little bit more, which I always like to strive to do. So on Goodreads, there is actually like a little breakdown of the year. You can get your year in books, which will break it down by like statistics basically, and I'm going to be going through that before I get into the actual titles for the books that I read this past year. Now, I was debating like sorting this by rating, but I'm not going to do that because for tomorrow's Bookmas video, I will be tier ranking every single one of the 100 books that I read this past year. So you will know my rating and everything and my ranking tomorrow. I think that's going to be a really fun one. But let's see if I can actually find this year in book thing on my phone. I think I might actually have to pull out my computer. We'll see. I tried, but I need my computer here because I could not find it at all. So just kind of my personal breakdown of things. I think that I started to get more into fantasy because fantasy, I had the goal at the beginning of the year to get to more of it, but it wasn't until the end of the year that I was able to actually do that, circumstances being what they were. But I am happy that I was able to actually get to a couple. Like, I didn't read my first fantasy until late September, early October, and that's very late, but I did read it, so that counts. I think historical fiction would have been my favorite genre of this year. I read so much of it, I feel like, compared to other years, because in other years I kind of would always save it for fall or winter, but I just kind of read it whenever this year, and it worked out super well for me. I definitely want to stop saving books for certain seasons because I'm so bad for that, and then I just never end up getting to them. But historical fiction I had major success with. I enjoyed a lot of the romances that I read. I also started reading a lot more YA contemporary, I feel like, than in past years. I was just looking for comfort reads, and I often find that those ones are just great comfort reads, so that was definitely a genre I read a lot of. Didn't really read many or maybe any sci-fi. Mystery and thriller I read quite a bit of around October, which is always how it happens. And did I get all the genres? I think so, I don't know, but yeah, let's get to the year in books because I did actually find it. So I'm actually going to have last year's next to this year's because I think it'll be interesting to compare, because I read a lot more this year than I did last year. Last year I read 70 books, which I think my goal was 50, so I'm happy with that. But this year I read 100. So last year I read 26,306 pages, and this year I read 32,362 pages. My shortest book that I read was 53 pages, and that was Princess Ever After by Katie O'Neill, which was adorable. And my longest book that I read was only 625 pages actually, but that was The Toll by Neal Shusterman, and I kind of found that that one was too long. But I've definitely read, like, I've read longer books in the past. I struggle to pick up long books because I feel like I'm wasting my time on one book when I could read like 2 or 3 in the time that it takes me to read that one. Last year, my longest book was 734 pages. So yeah, it's kind of it was a like shorter book year for me, I guess. But my average book length was 330 pages, which that's not surprising to me. I feel like that is pretty much like an average book length for most YA books. They fall in that kind of range, like the 330 to 370. I find that is pretty typical, so that makes sense. My most popular book that other people also shelved this past year was I reread Alice in Wonderland, so that makes sense. But that one, 409,000, I'm gonna start again. 409,865 people also shelved that one. And my least popular one was An Embarrassment of Witches by Sophie Goldstein and Jenna Jordan, I believe was her name. But that one, only 1,551 people also shelved. So that one, I actually didn't like that much, unfortunately. But my average rating for 2020 was 3.7 stars. That, I think, that makes sense, because I think a lot of the books that I read this year fell within the 3.5 to 4 stars range, which is awesome. But you can't mark half stars on Goodreads, obviously. They basically say it would crash the entire system if they did half stars, so they will never add it. But because of that, a lot of the books that I've marked have been 3 out of 5 stars, so I understand that. Last year, my average rating was 3.6. That's kind of surprising, because I feel like last year I read more books that I didn't really enjoy. This is interesting to me. Okay, so my highest rated on Goodreads this year was Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman, and that has a 4.65 average rating. But also last year, my highest rated was Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Oseman, so that's very interesting to me. I don't know why, it's like not that interesting, but you know. So now to get into the books that I read this past year. So just a little bit of a reminder for you guys that my reading year ends in November. Anything that I read in December of the previous year, I count towards the next year. So like anything I read in December of 2020 will count towards my 2021 read. So I always start the year running ahead, but eventually it does catch up to me, because for most of the year this year, I was running like 6 to 10 books behind on my Goodreads goal, which was yikes. So I just wanted to add a couple of things before we actually get right into the books that I read. So one, there's only going to be 99 different titles because I reread The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta, so I read that one twice, which brings me to 100 books total. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is I have decided to forego ratings, not just because I'm doing that tier ranking video, but also because my opinions kind of change, and I have ratings just for my personal Goodreads use. It kind of makes it easier when I'm planning out videos. I don't find that a rating system like fully works for me. I don't know if that really makes sense. Basically, I just think it's kind of more arbitrary because my opinion can kind of change, and it doesn't really seem worth the work to put a rating there. You'll kind of get a better idea from tomorrow's tier ranking video, but also I don't like to be nailed down to a rating. I hope that made sense. I don't really think it did, but yeah. So let's just get into the books that I read this year. 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston, The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker, Hidden Sea by Gregory Maguire, Love and Other Trainwrecks by Leah Conan, One Day in December by Josie Silver, The 12 Days of Dash and Lily by Rachel Cohn and David Levithan, 25 Days Till Christmas by Poppy Alexander, The Toll by Neil Schusterman, The Right Swipe by Alicia Ray, The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, All Your Twisted Secrets by Diana Urban, The Bromance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams, American Royals by Catherine McGee, The Key to Happily Ever After by Tiff Marcello, Wolf by Ryan Groudon, Come Tumbling Down by Shannon Maguire, The Night Country by Melissa Albert, Lovely War by Julie Berry, Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett, The Fountains of Silence by Rita Sepetys, Songs of Innocence and of Experience by William Blake, The Librarian of Auschwitz by Antonio Iturbe, translated by Lilith Thwaites, The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren, The Bride Test by Helen Huang, Undercover Bromance by Lisa K. Adams, Say You Still Love Me by K.A. Tucker, The Betrothed by Kiera Cass, Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett, Time of Our Lives by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca, Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo, Verona Comics by Jennifer Dugan, Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds, Slay by Brittany Morris, White Rage by Carol Anderson, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, Like a Love Story by Abdi Nazemian, Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta, Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kahn, Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman, Gilman, Mooncakes by Wendy Zhu and Suzanne Walker, Princess Ever After by Katie O'Neill, Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender, I Kissed Alice by Anna Birch, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, Almost American Girl by Robin Ha, My Calamity Jane by the Lady Janies aka Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows, Beach Read by Emily Henry, Tiny Pretty Things by Danielle Clayton and Sona Chairai-Potra, The Paper Girl of Paris by Jordan Taylor, Dear Haiti, Love Elaine by Micah Mulit and Maritza Mulit, Love Boat Taipei by Abigail Hing Wen, Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno, Under a Painted Sky by Stacey Lee, A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow, Maybe This Time by Casey West, Tweet Cute by Emma Lord, Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, Blood for Blood by Ryan Groudon, Iron to Iron by Ryan Groudon, House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig, Iron Cast by Destiny Soria, Shiny Broken Pieces by Danielle Clayton and Sona Chairai-Potra, Serious Moonlight by Jen Bennett, When We Were Magic by Sarah Gailey, Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron, Odd and True by Kat Winters, Dreamland Burning by Jennifer Latham, Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas, Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson, Beetle in the Hollow Bones by Eliza Lane, Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, illustrated by Danica Novgorodov, The Witches by Roald Dahl, The Graveyard Book Volume 1 and The Graveyard Book Volume 2 by Neil Gaiman, An Embarrassment of Witches by Sophie Goldstein and Jetta Jordan, Witchlight by Jesse Zabarski, The Witch Boy by Molly Ostertag, Coraline by Neil Gaiman, Sheets by Brenna Thumler, Seance Tea Party by Ramina Yee, The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw, Witchy by Ariel Slemet Rees, The King of Crows by Libba Bray, The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones, Among the Beasts and Briars by Ashley Poston, Master of One by Jada Jones and Danny Bennett, Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, Punching the Air by E.B. Zoboy and Yusuf Salam, Ninth House by Lee Bardugo, The Tea Dragon Festival and The Tea Dragon Tapestry by Katie O'Neill, The Great Gatsby graphic novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Anne of Green Gables graphic novel illustrated by Brenna Thumler, Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore, Well Met by Jen DeLuca, Spinning by Tilly Walden, and Check Please by Ngozi Ukazu. So that is every single book that I read in 2020. Yeah, I think I had a really great reading year. I'm very happy with how it ended up going, especially in the latter half of the year. Despite everything that's been happening, I was able to actually focus on books. But please do remember that like everyone's going to have a very different reading year. You may not have been able to read this year because of the distractions, and that's totally okay. You might be a slower reader, like I feel like a medium paced reader, and I know it's hard to not compare yourself to other people. Like I wish that I could read more than 100 books. I know I've read 150 some years and I wish I could do that again, but I understand like there's other things going on in my life that I need to pay attention to, so like I can't always read that much. But yeah, I hope that next year I will be able to be as successful as this year. I've really been able to discover some new authors that I've loved that I'm looking forward to reading more of, some new tropes and stuff that I really enjoy. So I think it was just a great year for reading overall, and hopefully next year will be the same. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to join me for Bookmas Day 19 tomorrow, where we are going to be doing, what are we doing? Oh, I literally just was talking about it. So for tomorrow, Bookmas Day 19, I'm going to be ranking every single one of these books. Tier ranking, if you haven't seen those videos, it was a big trend this year and I did a couple of them, but you just like, you have to rank all the books. It's self-explanatory, but come back tomorrow to see more of that. But don't forget to click that subscribe button. I'm going to be putting out a new video every single day for the entire month of December, so you won't want to miss any of those. And you can also click that notification bell so you for sure won't miss any of them. You'll be notified whenever they go up. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you also read any of these books. I would love to know if you also loved them, if you had like the same rating, or maybe you hated some that I love, which is totally fine too. But I will see you tomorrow with my tier ranking video. Bye!